So how do you write for your audience? I get this question all the time. Truth is, and I know a lot of people hate hearing this, I don't. Now, of course, you will hear from a lot of people who talk about, crunching the numbers, looking at your analytics, and figuring out what people want, filling that niche, etc. I am not one of those people. I think there's value in doing that, and I would never say that that is the wrong approach. It absolutely works for a lot of people. However, I don't think it's the only option. I don't think it's the only way to do things. So how do I do what I do? How did I get to have almost 84,000 followers? How did I get to this point? How did I know what my audience wanted? Here's what I do. I write what I want. I write what sparks my passions. I write about things that make me angry. I write about things going on in my life that I'm trying to figure out and process. I write about my train wreck relationships. I write about the things that make me happy. I write about my hobbies and interests. I write about what is in here. Now, this is why it works. People respond to feelings. We are emotional creatures. All of us. Don't tell me men are not emotional. We are all emotional. We all operate from a space of emotional response. We connect through stories, and the reason that we connect through stories is because we were meant to relate to one another on an emotional level. We are easily triggered. We love a good dopamine hit. Like, these are things that are just like intrinsic to our nature. And these are the things that we are going to seek out. If we happen to see a headline, a title of an article for something that is very interesting to us, we're probably going to click on it. If we are struggling with something, if we are going through a breakup, for instance, and we see someone else talking about a breakup, we're probably going to click on that. If we see an article about something that's very controversial or that tends to be a very polarizing issue, we're probably going to want to read it, even and maybe especially if we think that the person writing it is on the opposite side that we're on. We want to be riled up. We want to be passionate. We want to experience our feelings, the whole spectrum of them. This is such an intrinsic part of our nature. There is no getting around it. And thankfully, it's not something that we're ever going to outgrow. And I say that because I believe that that is the ultimate purpose of writing, to connect, to share. Human beings are meaning-making machines. You can look at the actual science on this. Our brains were designed to create meaning out of the world around us and the things that happen to us. And one of the ways that we go about doing this is by turning things into stories. One of the most important ways that we go about relating to one another and making sure that the wisdom that we have learned in our lifetime is carried on throughout the next generations is through the act of storytelling. So for me, that is one of the most important aspects of doing what I do, is to not pay too much attention to the numbers, to not pay too much attention to what my audience wants, but to give them something that is straight from my heart. Now, I'll tell you right now that this is not a system without flaw. Just because I happen to have been successful with it over the course of 5 years, keep that in mind. I've been doing this for 5 years, not to mention the decades before it that I was practicing for this. I still don't have a perfect track record, and that will never happen, even if you're using the other method. Now, thanks to algorithms and other things that are outside of our control that prevent or allow people access to our work at certain times, there's not always going to be a way that we can hit exactly the right people with what we're doing in any given moment. And depending on where we are sharing our work, on what platforms, we are going to have a different set of audience members in each one of those locations, and they are going to have a different set of priorities. For instance, I write primarily on Medium at this time, and that is not a space where people want to talk about some of the topics that are most passionate to me, like, for instance, nature or spirituality. So I can write a story about nature, about conservation, about my spiritual growth or spirituality in general, and those do not tend to get a lot of views. I'm full of emotion when it comes to those subjects. They are so dear to my heart, but I'm not going to connect with other people's emotions in that area because they're not there. They're not there. You know what I'm saying? This is a place where I think that these two different methods, the analytical method versus the emotion method, if you could merge them, this is the place to merge them. Find the spaces where the people are who want to read about those subjects. I haven't figured that part out yet, but I'll get there. So even knowing what I know after 5 years, what I know about my audience, what they want to read, what they don't want to read, does that mean that I won't publish something that I know they probably won't want to read? No, of course not. I just go for it. I just publish it. I take the hit. I know there won't be a lot of views, and I do it anyways because, again, it feels right and real and passionate to me to do so. And that is part of my practice as a writer, as an artist, to be true to myself and to interact with the world from that space. It can also be hard because I can see the trends in where we are going, and I'm sure you can too. I'm sure anyone who has been on social media can see this. We are heading into an era of nurturing conflict. In fact, I think that's a really nice way to put it. I think it's more accurate to say that we are heading into an era where toxic human interaction is going to become the norm. I try very hard to maintain a sense of integrity with my work and with myself and how I interact with the world and with my readers. And one of the ways in which I do that is to, yes, go ahead and write about all the things that I'm really passionate about, even if they are very controversial, but to do so in a way that I am being fair and somewhat measured, to allow my passion to come out, but also to be as transparent about my biases as I can be. And I will tell you right now that those are always the articles that get the most views. And to be honest, I am a little bit dismayed by that. I don't always want to write about things that are considered controversial. I really would like to spend more time writing poetry, fiction, stories about spirituality, stories about goodness and hope. I think we need so much more of that in this world. But those are consistently the things that I find perform the worst. Again, that doesn't mean that I would not write those things or publish those things, because I will. If I'm going to continue to maintain my integrity by my own standards, there's going to be times when I don't want to write about controversial topics, and I'm going to have to take the hit because of that. That is something that I'm really wrestling with at this time because, again, as I see things moving forward, I think that is going to become the bread and butter of the internet and of any content creator. And that is not a space that I want to exist in 100% of the time. Like, it's really important to me to use my words, the artistry and creativity of my writing, and even of my art and photography as a way to alchemize what is happening in the world and to create something better out of that. And again, there is not a huge audience for that, which is heartbreaking. So that is how I have gotten to where I have gotten. But I think we are moving into some really interesting territory that we've never been in before as a culture and also as writers, as artists. I just heard today that within a year, 90% of the content online is going to be AI generated. That is a staggering statistic. I don't even know what to do or to think about that, particularly as that pertains to the ways that AI is going to insinuate itself into industries like mine, into the world of writers and photographers and artists, and how it's going to overtake the real human work I don't know what that's going to look like or what's going to happen to those of us who are making a living doing this work. It's a little scary to think about, but I also feel that this is where my approach is going to become more and more important, I think, because AI cannot simulate human emotion. AI can analyze, AI can pick up our thought patterns and the ways that we do things, but it will never be able to feel. So there's no way to know what the future holds, especially as a writer. But I think that this is a critical part of it. I think that maintaining an emotional connection with our work and with the people who read it is going to become maybe the make or break ingredient as AI takes over the world. Skynet is coming. Ultimately, where we stand right now, it's all a crapshoot. I would say the most important thing to do is to follow your heart. And again, I know that's very emotion-centered, but your heart might tell you to go with the analytical version, to analyze all those numbers, to figure out who your audience is and to write for them. It might tell you that. And if it does, I think you should listen. We all have different approaches to the craft of writing and to how we relate with our audience. And both of those things are very important. I don't think there's any wrong way to do any of this. But again, thinking ahead, to me, the thing that is going to save us is our ability to feel and express our feelings and our ability to build relationships with our audience, to build a level of trust with them, to have interactions with them in the comments section. AI can't do that. Not like a real human. So whatever you decide, remember, make sure your heart is participating in it on some level, and then do whatever it is you feel called to do. Now get off YouTube and go write.